This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Aquaman isn't a perfect movie, but it's pretty great at being what it's trying to be. A beautiful, epic, funny blast. Yeah, it's not for everybody. How much you will enjoy it will probably depend on how much you enjoy the image of an octopus playing the drums for no good reason, and no judgment either way, but judging by the responses I got on Twitter when I announced this video, twitter.com/NandoViewMovies, a lot of you guys not only loved Topo, but wanted him showing up at the big final battle with a weapon in each arm like this dude from The Emperor's New Groove. But even in this great fun movie, there was one specific choice that I did not love. And I believe if it was done a slightly different way, would make almost every character better. And spoilers for Aquaman from here on in, that change is, Orm should not have been behind the attack on himself and Nereus. Manta should have done it on his own. So I'm gonna go through how this change would have played out and how it would have affected three of the main characters, starting with Black Manta. Okay, so a lot of you are probably going to get mad at me for this one, but stay with me. As he is written, Black Manta is kind of the Boba Fett of Aquaman. Looks cool, does very little. Now, he's got a character arc. Manta is a pirate whose father dies because Aquaman refuses to save him, which puts Manta on a path of revenge that ends with creating a suit capable of nearly defeating Aquaman before Manta himself is defeated and hot rods into the ocean. And we learn in a post-credits scene that Manta survived the hot rodding and will likely be the villain in a future movie. Here's my problem. Manta doesn't really do all that much. Like, he doesn't really succeed ever. He attempts to steal a submarine, but is thwarted by Arthur. And not to nitpick, not unlike my podcast, mostly nitpicking, you know the drill, but did Manta manage to still steal this sub? And does it still work? Like, it can still fire torpedoes, even though the torpedo room filled with water and exploded? It's not important. Then he participates in Orm's staged attack. Manta begs Orm to let him get revenge against Arthur, but Orm refuses. Then he sulks for a while. Later, Orm shows up on Manta's island, gives Manta a new set of weapons and a team of henchmen, and charges Manta with finding and killing Arthur. Manta fights with Arthur for a bit before his jetpack malfunctions, sound like anyone we know, and he seemingly dies. Like, he doesn't, but he probably should. So let's recap. Manta gets beat up, plays a part in a staged attack, gets denied his revenge, sulks, is given a bunch of new weapons, does a bit of engineering and paints the weapons black, finds Arthur, gets beat up again, hot rod. That's not great. The only reason I think the fan base doesn't mind him is because of a good performance, pretty excellent costume, and an unbelievably low bar for DCEU villains up until this point. But when you look at his actual accomplishments, there really isn't anything special about the character. Definitely not enough to make him seem like a serious threat going forward, especially now that Arthur is the king of Atlantis and he has the magical trident and the kaiju friend. But I think rewriting the attack on Orm and Nereus paints Manta as a way more interesting character. First, Manta and his father would be all on their own. They don't work for Orm. They steal the sub because they want to, because they're pirates. That immediately gives them more agency. Second, if Manta does attack Orm and Nereus on his own, that means he found Atlantis by himself. He wasn't told where it was. Fueled completely by revenge, Manta located a mythological city that pretty much no one believes even exists in a couple of days and staged an attack. That's something no other human has ever done. Third, and most important, Black Manta does some damage. The attack isn't a complete success. Orm, Nereus, and Vulko survive, but if this was a legitimate attack, Manta would establish himself real early on as something new. The first human in these movies to kill an Atlantean. That's a big deal. And you may say, well, if Manta isn't secretly working for Orm in an effort to start a war, why would he attack Orm and Nereus at all? Why not go after Arthur? I think you can come up with a few reasons. First one is just that Manta hates Atlanteans, just like wants to kill any of them. Second one, and the one I prefer, is just that Manta doesn't immediately recognize that Arthur isn't working with the other Atlanteans. He doesn't have much information about Arthur. Manta could just say, my father was killed by an Atlantean. I think I found some Atlanteans. The one who killed my father is probably working for them, or at the very least, they know who he is. And to make this work in the movie we got, you probably need to play Aquaman as more of the secret protector he is introduced in Justice League, and less of the selfie celebrity we meet in the beginning of Aquaman, but I think that's a worthwhile trade-off. Next, Orm. I liked Orm. He's an interesting character, well-written, perfectly costumed, and played by a wonderful actor who knows a terrific sticker when he sees one, and Orm is 95% of a great villain. However, I think he isn't perfect, specifically because he does one thing wrong. wrong. He lies. There are a million good video essays on what makes the perfect villain, and I largely agree with them. However, one quality that I don't see discussed all that much but I believe is crucial in constructing an interesting villain is honesty. A great villain can tell the truth. Now, there are exceptions. Obviously, two of the best villains of all time, Joker and Loki, lie a lot. But that's their thing. That's what makes them special. Loki is literally the god of mischief. He can't not lie. But take two recent great Marvel villains, Vulture and Killmonger. Their arguments are simple. Superheroes don't care about the little guy. Wakanda's isolation is irresponsible. And while their solutions are too extreme, their arguments are rooted in truth. A truth that challenges the hero's values. And because their argument is rooted in truth, they don't need to lie. Killmonger doesn't pretend he's going to be a peaceful king and secretly start a coup. He kicks the front door down and says, here's what I believe, here's what I want to do about it, try and stop me. That is way more intimidating. In Aquaman, Orm has a pretty, get ready for this one, airtight argument, or watertight argument. The surface world is harming the underwater kingdoms with pollution and ecological disasters, and the people of Atlantis should do something about it. That's a solid argument. Maybe that something shouldn't be unleash the wrath of the seven seas, but the people of Atlantis should do something. And to wage his war, Orm needs to gain support of 4 of the 7 kingdoms, even though there are really only 5 that still exist, and one of them is just a bunch of fish monsters. Once Orm has their support, he can become the Ocean Master, whatever that is, and give us the revenge we probably deserve. But all of the other kings aren't on board with this from the start, so Orm needs to do some convincing. He takes King Nereus of the race of underwater redheads to the exposition statues, and during the middle of a speech, they are attacked by Black Manta. This convinces Nereus that the ocean needs to defend itself and is the start of Orm's ascension. And it turns out that this entire attack was staged by, dun dun dun, Orm himself. It was a false flag attack meant to trick Nereus. Orm's the bad guy. And I think that's cheap. It immediately makes Orm unnecessarily unrelatable. Do I agree with Orm that humans are polluting the ocean and it should stop? Yes. Would I stage an attack and kill my own people to make that point? No. That's something a bad guy would do. And the weird thing about Orm's plan in Aquaman is that it works pretty well if he isn't double dealing. If Manta comes and attacks Orm and Nereus without any coordination from Orm, then Orm has all the motivation he needs to wage war against the surface world. And now he is 100% honest. He isn't tricking anyone. Orm is making a good argument. He's relatively justified. And you could say that Orm directing the attack reveals something about his character. He's a clever, ruthless strategist. That's true. However, I believe he could be more interesting if he didn't coordinate the attack. If Orm was able to take advantage of this situation on the fly with no preparation, he would demonstrate that he is a savvy manipulator. And if he can recognize that Manta is not after the Atlanteans, but just Arthur, Orm can still recruit Manta to find Arthur and Mira. This would show that Orm is a cunning strategist capable of recognizing this opportunity, and it would show that Orm isn't too proud to put the attack behind him and create an alliance with a perceived enemy to achieve his goal. Orm becomes an even more competent villain. Okay, so let's talk about the final link in this new chain of events. Arthur. How would this change affect him? Well, Arthur has what I believe are two relatively disconnected arcs in Aquaman, the King arc and the Hero arc. King arc's pretty simple. Arthur starts the movie not wanting to be king. He hates Atlantis and doesn't want the responsibility of ruling it. Over the course of the story, he learns that he's the only person that can stop Orm and protect the people he cares about, so he takes that responsibility and becomes king. He spells it out pretty clearly in his conversation with the Carathan. Hero arc is a little trickier. In the first act, Arthur decides not to save Manta's father. Because of that decision, Manta tries to get revenge, which puts Mira in harm's way. Arthur realizes that he made the wrong decision and seems to decide that killing is wrong. This is kind of demonstrated when Arthur spares Orm's life, although it's unclear whether that was motivated by the Manta fight or finding out that their mother is still alive. Although Atlanta tells Arthur that he needs to be a hero to save his people, so even though she doesn't know anything about the Manta story, Atlanta ties the arc together. Here's my issue with the Hero arc, which I find more interesting of the two. None of it needs to happen. The Manta plotline isn't essential, it's just kind of there, seemingly to justify the decision to spare Orm and set up Manta as a future villain. Mira might as well hold up a card during her talk with Arthur that says, Black Manta will return in Aquaman, Ocean to Ocean. Sure, Manta is the catalyst for Arthur's decision to become a hero, but everything that happened would have happened roughly the same way, whether Arthur saved Manta's father or not. In the original Aquaman, Manta attacks Arthur and Mera in Sicily because he wants revenge, but revenge isn't why Manta was originally working with Orm. Manta is a mercenary. It is completely reasonable to expect that even if Arthur had saved Manta's father, Manta would have still taken Orm's offer and hunted Arthur and Mera anyway. But let's say Arthur saves Manta's father, and then Manta refuses Orm's offer because Manta owes a debt to Arthur. Orm is just gonna send his soldiers to fight Arthur anyway. They know where Arthur is, and they have all the weapons Orm gave Manta. The only reason Manta stands a chance against Arthur in Sicily is that he has the upgraded Atlantean armor and their red laser gun. Give those to the soldiers, and they'll probably do as well as Manta did. They'll get a couple of hits in and lose. So ultimately, Arthur's choice to let Manta's father die doesn't matter. Take it out of the movie, nothing really changes. And that's not great, especially since it could be the defining choice of Arthur's journey. And if we've learned anything from movies like this, a good villain is the result of choices made by the heroes. Killmonger doesn't have a chip on his shoulder if T'Chaka doesn't abandon him. Toombs doesn't turn to a life of crime if Tony doesn't callously put him out of a job. And even though the villain is wrong, their interactions with the hero teach the hero a lesson. T'Challa learns that Wakanda can't turn its back on the world. Peter learns that the little guy needs someone to look out for him. This is a great time to teach Arthur what should really be the lesson of this movie. A hero saves everybody. They can't pick and choose who's worthy of being saved. And that's why Atlanta is right when she says that Atlantis needs not a king, but a hero. A king would continue the cycle of violence that's tearing Atlantis apart, but a hero can find another way to protect the people. He can inspire them to be better by example. And that's why Manta working with Orm from the beginning is a mistake. I know, right? You forgot that's what we were talking about. If Manta is working with Orm, the attack on Orm and Nereus, the spark that starts Orm's war, is Orm's fault. Orm is responsible. But if Manta is attacking Atlantis because he wants revenge on Arthur for not saving his father, the war is Arthur's fault. His single decision to let a man die who he could have saved is the reason that Atlantis may go to war with the surface world. And sure, Orm ultimately made the decision to go to war and Arthur can't be held completely responsible, but now Arthur's bad decision is tied directly to the plot. This story could not have happened without Arthur's choice. So Black Manta and the Atlantean soldiers can meet Arthur and Mera in Sicily. Arthur and Manta fight, and during the fight, Arthur learns that Manta attacked Orm because he wanted revenge on Arthur. It dawns on Arthur that his decision to let Manta's father die started all of this. And Arthur is finally forced to acknowledge that whether he's king or not, Arthur's actions have consequences. And if he wants to end this war, Arthur needs to reevaluate what kind of person he's going to be. When Black Manta asks Arthur to save his father, even though Arthur has rejected the idea of being king of Atlantis, Arthur responds with a medieval sense of justice. You killed innocent people, ask the sea for mercy. And in the end, the only way for Arthur to end this war is save the people by doing what a hero does and sparing the life of someone he has every reason to kill. It's about as good of an arc as you can hope for. So that's my case. Again, Aquaman is a pretty great movie without this change, but I think if you had Manta attack Orm on his own, Manta would be a more competent villain, Orm would be a more relatable antagonist, and Arthur would have a more satisfying journey. So a lot of the time, I'll get emails from you guys or posts on the subreddit with your own changes to movies. And I'm not being nice or anything, a lot of them are great. Like, so good that I can't make a better change than one of you guys made. Seriously. There is an Ant-Man and the Wasp change on the Nando V Movie subreddit that is better than anything I've ever thought up for that movie. You should give it a read. The link is in the episode description. Anyway, when you guys come up with awesome ideas like this, I always recommend you make your own videos. And a lot of the time, the response I get is that you guys don't know how to edit videos. And it's not really that hard, but I see how starting out can be daunting. But luckily, there are places where you can learn skills like video editing that are shared with you by experts. It's Skillshare. Whether you want to learn how to edit videos, make motion graphics, or so many other things, Skillshare have got you covered. They have over 25,000 courses on a wide variety of topics from videography, photography, business, design, all kinds of stuff. And all of the courses have a community discussion board where you can talk to the people taking the class. and I wanted to check out some of their classes for editing on Adobe Premiere, the system that I edit videos on. And there are some great ones, like Video Editing with Adobe Premiere Pro 2018 for Beginners by this guy, Jordy, which, listen, I've been at this for a while. I've always edited on Premiere, and I was learning things from this beginner's class. What does it cost, you ask, young Gamora? Great question. Usually, a premium membership costs around $10 a month, but the first 250 people to sign up using my link in the description, you're gonna get 2 months of Skillshare for free. They go fast, try it out, I think you're gonna dig it. As always, gotta give a huge thank you to everyone who continues to support the channel on Patreon. You guys are the best. If you want to see your name up here, get access to videos early, other cool stuff, throw in literally any amount of money at patreon.com/NandoVMovies. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. Also, subscribe to my podcast, Mostly Nitpicking. Every week, me and my co-host DJ pick apart a piece of pop culture by looking exclusively at the details. This week, we're doing Captain Marvel, which I'm sure will be a very interesting episode. You can find us anywhere podcasts are found. We're at NitpickingPod on Twitter. Also, recently made a Letterboxd account. Letterboxd is a place where you can aggregate movie reviews and stuff like that. So if you want to read my reviews of movies, you can follow or subscribe to me, whatever it is, at letterboxd.com/NandoVMovies. And as always, follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/NandoVMovies. It means a lot to me for no good reason.